We all live in homes, and what makes a home comfortable, functional, and beautiful? Design. Design is an important part of creating a home that you will actually love, but many of us are challenged by all the choices and trends and what actually works when styling your home. It's an art, but it's one that can be learned. On today's episode of Realty Bytes, Conversations on Real Estate and Lifestyle, we are talking about home design and creating a space that works and one that you love. We're tackling a host of elements that goes into creating great design, from creating functional spaces, choosing the style that's right for you, to selecting the right colors and placing your furniture to ensure a harmonious flow. We've got you covered. We'll also discuss the fine line between interior decorating and staging, the latest trends, and all the details that make a house a home. And to help us on our journey, we have a special guest, Brittney Marino. Brittney is an experienced interior designer with over a decade of experience. She's worked on show homes for large corporations in and around the Toronto area and brings with her a unique insight as a realtor with over 5 years of experience on a family-owned team. She knows exactly what makes a home stand out, design, and what buyers are looking for. So if you have a home or a living space, and we all do, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Welcome to the show, Brittney.
Hello, everyone.
So before we start, maybe you can just tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yes, of course. So I have been lucky enough to have the creative side of my brain enhanced when I was a little kid. I loved art class. I was also into dance and singing. So I feel that I was able to fuel that as a child. And I think what's great is it created this path for me as I got older. So I did go into interior design school right out of high school, and I was able to work my way through the corporate ladder of design. I was working with a lot of residential high-end luxury interior design firms in and around the city. And then I also was able to go to a big platform where we created commercial spaces and did other types of retail spaces. And then I also went into doing freelance, where I was able to do design on a more personal level, helping people with their residential homes, small scale type of projects. You know, it could be just like a basement renovation or even just making over a nursery for a family. So I kind of have a lot of realm when it comes to actual design, because I can do small things, but then I've also been able and tackled larger scale projects like custom builds from the ground up, where some of these projects are multi-million dollars. So having this realm, I think, is great in order for clients to really understand how design works. And what's also great is being a real estate agent as well, which I've been not newly, now 5 years in real estate. I think it goes so hand in hand together, which help benefit my clients in terms of buyers and sellers, and just making sure that the home is the place where you want to live, a home is the place where you want to be, and also giving it your personal style with amazing function as well.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. And so as we begin our conversation, maybe you can sort of highlight the difference between interior design and staging.
Yeah, of course. I think when it comes to actually designing your home, there's a lot more thought that goes into actual functionality and personality in terms of how you use your home on a daily basis. A lot of people, yes, they want their homes to look beautiful, but does it actually function? So when we're doing, for example, the kitchen is one of the most popular areas that I will design for clients. And again, going through what the actual functionality of those drawers are, what's inside the interior of the kitchen, what size appliances do you have? What are you using? How many kids do you have? Do you have a dog? Do you need a dog station integrated into the kitchen? So those types of things and questions come up when you're kind of doing design. Yes, we do make spaces look 100% beautiful and to your personality with theme and style and trend, but we're really honing in on those types of personal questions when doing a design. When we're doing staging, it's a lot more different. It's kind of like a clean slate, neutral, depersonalizing, but obviously using the right scale of furniture and making sure that it looks very clean and minimal. Again, we do want to have some trends and colors incorporated in staging, but that personal element is really kind of taken away when doing staging.
Right, because they're for two different purposes, right? So as you said, when you're doing design, it's for you, the way that you live. And when you're staging, you're trying to make that space applicable for the way that the majority lives, or other people can envision themselves in that space. So if someone was wanting to make over their home, where should they start?
I think really in terms of making over a home, a lot of people need to understand the actual budgeting that comes with doing design. I think we watch a lot of HGTV homes and, we see these budgets that maybe are not actually real. And of course, we see timelines that are not actually real. So I think really understanding the actual construction elements that go into doing a makeover, because yes, even if you're just redoing a space, there's still a lot of constructional elements that we have to go through: plumbing, electrical, drywall, just to name a few. So really understanding the process. I like starting with that with all of my clients, and then really creating a foundation for the actual design and function. So again, I think speaking with an expert, 100% designer and contracting team. I think a lot of people just go to the contractor route, which I love my contractors. They're absolutely great. But when it comes to actual design, sometimes they don't have the knowledge and expertise in that. So hiring a team with designer and contracting, going through, like I said, the timeline, the budget, and then how to actually make this makeover a reality. I think then once you kind of have that out of the way, then you're able to actually dive into actually doing the design. So for sure, speaking with professionals about how to make this makeover actually happen.
So when people are wanting to make a change in their space, it always comes down to the money, right? They've got a certain budget that they have to work with, but they've got this whole list of things that they'd like to have. So do you think it would be advantageous for them to sort of say what their must list is and what their like to list is, so that they sort of have something to work with when they're faced with those budget constraints?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of the times people actually will hire me to implement some sort of design and execute it in phases, right? Because obviously, as you know, especially when it comes to even real estate, buyers and people buying homes, they like their home to be, harmonious, have a flow. So we're not going to design just one space, in a trend of hardwood and then, in a year do the next trend of hardwood. We make these decisions so that, like I said, we could design sort of the entire main floor or entire second floor with, executing it at different times, because the budget sometimes is limited. But again, what I focus a lot of my business on, as I was saying, is understanding the budget. And again, we can do the design and we can do it, but if you can't implement it, I'm not going to get your hopes up and, trying to say, oh yes, we can do this just to get the job done. I'm very realistic with my clients. So again, if we meet and we go through that phase and they're like, you know what, we will save up for another 6 months so we can execute the best design at that point, then we will do that. So I agree in terms of having your must-haves and your priorities, making sure that we can fit that into the budget, and then ensuring that, yes, those things that, your wish list or desired things, sometimes it has to go on the back burner and get executed at a later date.
When somebody is looking to design a space, should there be the similar type of feel throughout the entire house, or can somebody have a country chic home and then one room is ultra modern, or is that just too stark? And
yeah, I think that in terms of the home, we want it to feel very harmonious throughout the entire interior and exterior of the home as well. So, and I think a lot of our jobs as designers is also making the husband and the wife actually come to an agreement on style as well. That's also sometimes difficult, but absolutely, we want to make sure there's an entire flow throughout the home And I think that when it comes to actually executing it, for example, we'll have clients who want to do a space, but I will say, okay, here's the entire square footage of your main floor. Let's buy that material. We can keep it in a warehouse. We can keep it in a safe space if need be and execute this at a later time, right? Having a flow is absolutely important, but I will say in certain spaces, you can definitely create a different style or create a different theme. Like a lot of the times I'll create unique themes in powder rooms or in basements or, like somewhere in a bedroom, something where you can close the door where, it can be something entertaining or fun in a space, but still allowing that open concept areas to kind of flow together.
So when we're thinking about designing a space, we've talked about sort of having what you're wanting to do, having a budget. What else should you consider if you're considering a design project?
Yeah, I think in terms of selecting the type of finishes, in terms of the look that you want, and also again, it goes down to that functionality. Like one thing that I really educate on as well is like, again, countertop surfaces. Why are certain materials porous? Why are they not? Are you okay to have staining if your red wine falls, or do you want something that's going to be more protective? So I think, again, really understanding the fundamentals of the actual design in terms of finishes, and that's why having a designer is so important, because they're not only just picking those pretty things, they're actually educating you on the actual use of the material. So I think, just like I said, ensuring that yes, you could have this look. A lot of people, and I use Pinterest a lot when it comes to actually doing conceptual design and inspiration. I think a lot of people, especially in this generation, probably have Pinterest or Instagram where they can look at spaces. And a lot of the times, yes, I can point out the material, and explain the type of material it is and will it function for that specific type of client or space. Like, how we design a home is probably different than how you would design potentially like a penthouse condo, right? Something maybe more trendy, something more ultra modern, where a home you might want something a little bit different and function a little bit different, especially even if it's like a cottage or a vacation property. If you're not using it all the time or you're cooking, a lot of the times my cottage clients will just take out food or just do barbecue, so they don't maybe need that use of the kitchen as much versus someone who's using the home every single day. So I think just really knowing the function is honestly the most important thing when it comes to design.
You pointed out a number of really important things as you talked about the surfaces. So I know a lot of people are into the white kitchens with the white countertops, and that's an issue with red wine and coffee stains. And if you've got kids, you don't want to have a space where people feel that they can't actually be in it or touch anything because it's going to be damaged. So that's great. And I guess as well, the stage of life that you're in. Are you with kids? Are you older? Do you have teenagers coming in and out with all their friends? So I guess all of that goes into the design concept as well. So what else would you say would be something that you should consider?
I think that a lot of times people don't realize the small impacts when it comes to design, like simply changing your paint color or changing or upgrading your light fixtures. Also, what's really important is your exposure, which way you're facing. Depending on where the sun hits the certain spaces can alter certain types of colors. I actually started working at Benjamin Moore as a color consultant right out of my interior design courses. And again, I just saw color so perfectly, and I could tell the undertones of a color where a lot of people would come in and they'd just show me a paint swatch. And I'm like, well, let's go to your space. Let's see it, because you're facing west. It's going to pull a lot of sun. It's going to pull a lot of pink. And, they wouldn't maybe trust in me, and then they'd paint it and they'd say, oh my gosh, it's Pepto-Bismol on my wall, right? So I think, again, like having that expert advice and knowing, like I said, your lighting is really important. So understanding that, and again, making sure like when you have your paint color, again, painting is pretty expensive when you're painting an entire home. So why not invest in that expert advice to make sure you're making the right choice? Again, because it's all perceptive based on your space and your finishes.
Right. And that's something too, even when I go into clients' homes and we're talking about painting, a hallway or a living room to freshen it up for sale, and they'll go white, and I'll go, it's not just white. And there's like hundreds of whites. So we need to look at what's the color of your floor, what's the color of your staircase, what's the color of your furniture, kitchen cupboards, and they do have those undertones, whether they're cool or warm, and you want to bring everything in. Otherwise, it's very stark. It's stark to the eyes, a little jarring. Then you'll go into another space where everything just sort of meshes. It just there's a feeling, right? Color gives a feeling, and so you need to make sure that all of that is pulled together. So another great tip there. And also with the lighting, there's differences in the type of bulbs that you put into your lighting, right? Maybe you can
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about that, the stark white, the warms, all the different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Your Kelvin of light is absolutely important. And one thing that I also hate is mishmash of, your colors of bulbs, right? You want to have this harmonious feeling, again, that we keep speaking about in your home. So you should also do that and change your light bulbs, right? A lot of people obviously don't know and they're not educated, but there is different lighting spectrums, and it's called by Kelvin. And especially with LED lights, a lot of the times you will see when you purchase them what the amount is. So there's like a daylight, which is a kind of white neutral light. Then there's obviously a warm white, which makes that little bit of those yellow undertones. And then there's a cool light, which is like more, has like a little bit of a bluey undertone. So everyone has different preferences, but again, ensuring that color is harmonious throughout the home, and it will impact how colors and things work. So when we do lighting, we investigate and know what type of lighting and light bulbs the fixtures take, so that we know when we're picking colors and finishes, they are going to go together.
Right. And it's funny that you say that. I remember showing a house, and it was just recently renovated and had pot lights everywhere. And all my client could say is, I can't stand this. These lights are killing my eyes. I got to get out of here. It was just so jarring to her. So another great tip, lots of great tips that you're sharing here today.
Speaking of lighting, like again, always like put your pot lights on dimmers, because again, exactly, pot lights are absolutely an amazing feature to have in a home, but for your specific client, it was too jarring. But what if it was at 50%? Maybe that would have been better, right? So again, I think a lot of people don't even think about that. Yes, it is more expensive to install a dimmer switch. You have to get compatible pot lights and stuff. But again, it's a small price to pay to actually help you function in your home, right? You're talking about maybe $50 to $100 if you get a more higher end dimmer switch. But again, that's like an important thing to think about when you're installing these types of lights. So that's one thing, 100% install all your pot lights on dimmers, no matter where in the home.
So dimmers, the color of the light. And then also I think a space needs to have different types of light. So pot lights give a feeling, but then you need to have task lighting. You need to have, if you're in a living room, lamps, so that it has different feelings, different emotions with the different types of lighting. And so I guess that's part of what you would have to incorporate into your space.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it goes down to that function. Why are you using this space? How do you want to use the space? How do you want to feel in this space? And then we can execute that type of lighting, again, based on your function.
Let's just pick a room. Let's say somebody wants to redo their living room. What are some of the things you would look at in terms of redesigning that space, or your considerations?
Yeah, I think in a living room, or we can even say maybe the family room, because I think a lot of homes maybe don't have living rooms anymore. So understanding if they want entertainment or TV in that space, because that should be a focal point. Looking at the size of the space, what type of seating can be arranged in that space. And also an important one is also the ceiling heights. How can we elevate, the look of the room? Could we add a treatment on the ceiling? Could that be wallpaper, faux beams, waffle, crown molding? And then also always in family rooms, if there's hardwood flooring, making sure that there's a rug to anchor the space. It's not only in terms of function, it actually makes the room feel more cozy, but it also creates, some sort of style and dimension to the space. So again, and if we are creating a focal point in this family room, Can we add a fireplace? Can we add a feature wall? So again, understanding that type of function. If for whatever reason somebody doesn't want a TV in that sort of space, then creating maybe a focal point in another type of area in that room.
And so that's one of the things too that we talk about when we're staging a house, is that as the person enters the room, there should be a focal point, something that they're looking at. The room should essentially have one purpose. So I hate when I go into a dining room and it's a dining room, but it's an office as well, because then it's like, well, what am I using this for? And then you mentioned rugs, and rugs are great, but often I see rugs that are the wrong size for the room and for the furniture. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you select rug sizes.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are afraid, and I don't know why, maybe to invest in the type of rug that you need, because again, obviously larger rugs are more expensive, but if you don't put the correct size, like you're saying, Evelyn, it just doesn't look right. It looks out of place. So you want to ensure your furniture legs are all touching the rug. So again, if you have a sofa, you don't want the rug going all the way underneath to the edge of the sofa, but you want the front legs to sit on the rug. So again, if you have a love seat and a sofa, you want to make sure the front legs are at least on it. So that can help determine kind of the length or width. And then kind of in the middle, obviously, you sit your other items. But again, that's a good determining factor when it comes to actual sizing of the rug. You have to have some sort of furniture feet on the rug.
Right. So it can be too big and it can be too small. So a lot of times I'll see it too small because, like you said, they don't want to spend the money. But I've also seen where it's too big and it covers this beautiful hardwood floor that's underneath. So it kind of defeats the purpose. So more great tips. Now, I guess the other thing is that when people are looking to design, they're always wanting what's new and trendy. And that could be a good thing, but it could also be maybe not a wise thing. So maybe you can speak to trends and how you incorporate those into spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. I think exactly. Everyone does look at the magazines and looks at, again, social media for these spaces. But again, does it work actually for you or where your home is actually situated? I think that's super important. But I think when implementing trends, I think implement it in small things or things that could be easily changed. I would never suggest like a colored sofa in a main living space. Again, if we're doing like a movie theater or, a certain man cave that's a sports theme, okay, we can dedicate maybe a colored sofa in that space. But in your main part of your home, I would always stick with a neutral colored sofa, but then you can do trendy pillows, like some trends that are in right now are those boho or those round pillows or things with tassels, very free. That's easy. If that trend goes away, you're just buying new pillows. Again, a rug is also another way where you can play with different types of colors and themes. I'm a really advocate for Ruggable. They are washable, interchangeable rugs. They go on a Velcro type of pad, so you can have one pad and switch out your rugs even for like a season. So again, investing in those neutral, timeless pieces in your home that are large scale. And then again, you could go with trends that are maybe a little bit more small scale, especially if you're being cautious of budget. And even paint colors, again, introducing, art or a paint. It's so easy to change out those things. And again, maybe it's just how it's laid out for the trend. There's some people that really want to be in the trends and can just change, every 5 to 10 years. But a lot of people don't have the means to do that. So just really focusing on what is important of that trend and then implementing it in a way that's tasteful and in smaller scale.
Right. I think that's a really good tip because I think we also get tired of our spaces. And by just changing up little things like pillows or throws or maybe a few decorative accessories gives us new life and new vitality to love our space and love our home. And it's much easier to do if you're just changing those little things rather than, like you said, those big and expensive items in the home, which also I find can date your space, right? So I know a few years ago, a really big trend was that those green couches, they were like an emerald green kind of color and it looked funky, you know, with the yellow pillows. And I'm like, beautiful for today, but next year it's probably going to be out and you're going to be tired of that very dominant color. Or when you do decide you want to change, it's going to be expensive. And it's also when you go to look at houses, I know for us going through them all the time, you can say, oh, they did this room 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and you don't want to date your home. I don't think you want it to be, like you said, timeless.
Yeah, and like for example, like even in the kitchen, like brass was this huge thing, and I think it's still here a little bit, but I think it's switched metals now. But again, your handles, most handles come in kind of standard sizes. So great, put brass on, change the brass faucet, but then in 5 years, if it goes out of style, you can switch it to black, right? You just call a plumber or a handyman, you buy your faucet for a couple $100, you buy your handles for, you know, maybe $150, and you just switch the screws, and then there you go, your kitchen has been updated. But again, it still could be with the trend.
There's also the exterior of our homes, and you touched on it at the beginning. What are some of the things that we should look at when we're looking to renovate or update our exterior spaces?
Yeah, again, I think that a lot of people focus a lot on the interiors and sometimes they don't realize the impact of the exterior, especially being a realtor. You know, the first impression starts actually outside of the home. So yes, we want to make sure it flows harmoniously. Again, you don't want a different feeling outside than inside. I think huge impacts are exterior lighting, especially a lot of houses have sconces. So making sure that those are illuminating nicely, but also look nice. Your front door and garage door, if you have that in your home, super important in creating a feeling. And then again, ensuring like the gardening is up to a certain standard, making sure that it's actually filling in nicely, has those colors, again, all going together in a certain type of home. I think selecting, again, when it comes to actual design, you know, a lot of people are like, well, what do I have to design? Well, are you putting a wreath on the door? Are you creating, you know, the color of your door, or is it going to be glass? Well, you know, most of the times if you have like a little porch, creating a little seating area, yeah, you might not use it, but how that's stage styled and designed is also super important. And when it comes into the backyard, again, functioning in terms of living spaces, there's a lot of living spaces that go into a backyard. Like you're saying, a dining room is meant for dining. A dining room shouldn't have, you know, an office and a playroom and this, but your exterior is actually different because you have all these different types of spaces in one, you know, seating area, dining area, lounging area, could be, you know, barbecue cooking area. So again, designing that to suit your function with a harmonious flow from inside to out. And again, I think the most important, like I said, is lighting and those colors that are featured on the outside. And again, you might like a certain color, but it might not go with your actual facade of your home. Do you have stone, brick, vinyl? Making sure that those colors all flow together as well. And again, when speaking about exterior colors, do not choose your exterior colors inside your home. That's the biggest mistake. You got to take it outside, see it in the sun, because whatever color is on the inside, it is so much lighter with natural sunlight. So a lot of people, I think, when picking colors, they're afraid, oh, it's too dark, but it's the complete opposite. You always want to go to those darker colors outside.
Right. And here in the GTA, we have a lot of homes that the first thing that you see, they say, is the garage. Maybe you see the front door. Sometimes you don't see the front door at all. But what are your tips when selecting colors for a garage and a front door? Do you make them the same? Do you make them different? Do you have the garage door prominent? Do you try to make it recede? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it totally depends on the style of the home, absolutely. But I'd say, you know, for the most suburban home, we'll say like brick style home, I definitely think making the garage more subtle and the front door pop is way more inviting. Just because, again, the front doors are so much bigger, larger. You don't want them so much in your face. Again, hopefully you have some nice gardening, some walkway, you know, of interlock, concrete, stonework, something that's inviting you to the front. So I would personally make sure the garages aren't as much as a feature and more the front door area. Again, because who wants to look at the garage? You want to look at where you're entering, where people are coming in, so make that more of a focal point. And again, they can be the same color, but also in terms of what is on the door or how the door looks, in terms of the handle, like I said, glass, wreath, something like that. You want to make it inviting. I personally, like I said, don't like to make the garage door prominent at all.
I agree with you there. And I think what you had said before about the front door, and I know when we're staging to sell, we want to make that front door appealing because that's where the buyers are going. They're standing at the front door as the agent's trying to open the lockbox. They're there for a while, so they're looking around. So you want to make sure that that space is nice. And it's nice to have what I kind of call vignettes. So, like you said, either some potted plants or a nice welcoming mat, maybe a little seating area, a bench. You can add some pillows or things like that to just sort of give it that pop of color and make it inviting. Any other tips you would have?
Yeah, I think in terms of, again, you want your home to feel homey. So adding, like you said, those homey elements. And again, I think that in terms of, again, lighting, making sure that you have upgraded lighting outside. A lot of people, if they buy a home from a builder, they just leave those ugly lights. But again, actually having something that is to scale, because we know when builders build these homes, they just buy, bulk, whatever, right? But having something to scale, something to give a little bit of personality. We all have exterior lighting on our home. And if you don't, actually upgrading and adding, recessed pot lights outside gives such a warm, welcoming feeling, and it's also highlighting your home. So again, I think adding it there will create a welcoming feeling, because you're not just seeing your home during the day. People are coming over at all hours, and people driving by, especially when you have a for sale sign on your lawn. People are looking all the time, so having those inviting moments and making it feel homey.
Right. And the pot lights in the eaves are one way, like you said, but I would also suggest not to forget lighting in the gardens, because they give it lighting from a different perspective, right? So think about that as well. In terms of tips of staging your home, what are maybe 3 things people should consider when they're staging the home as opposed to designing to live?
Yeah, I definitely think upgrading your paint in your entire home is absolutely a must. I know it is a cost, but it is something that will absolutely benefit, not in terms of even just making sure it's a neutral light color, but I think a lot of the times you don't realize how you could have scuffs or little imperfections in your home until you start painting it. It just gives it a nice fresh look, and ensuring that if you can't do the entire home, making sure that it is in those important areas like the main floor, master bedroom. And I also think that in terms of the scale of your furniture, that's super, super important. Sometimes a lot of people don't realize, less is more, but the more you simplify it, the better your home will look. A lot of times people think, I need to fill the space with all this stuff, when actually that's the opposite. You want to make sure you have the right scale furniture to showcase the space. You want to make sure you're thinking of your walkways and stuff like that. So ensuring that you don't have too much furniture. And obviously I think this is one that, gets said over and over again, but it does have a huge impact, is depersonalizing. Take all those personal photos down. Take, things that are maybe too trendy, take them down, make it very clean slate. I also don't understand when I say to people, especially as a realtor, like take down their wedding photos, and they're like, oh, why? It's fine. But it's like, then when you're going online, your wedding photos are online for everybody to see. And as soon as they post, oh my gosh, can you take those down? It's like, well, that's why depersonalizing is so important, especially in a world where we have social media, everything's online. People could unintentionally be taking screenshots, sending it, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, I know that person now who's selling. So depersonalizing is super, super important.
What's the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can visit my website for design. It's brittneynicoleco.com. BRITTNEY, and then Nicole CO. That's my website, so .com, or you can also search me on Instagram, or the best way is obviously to just always give me a call or a text, 416-678-1683. I'm always accessible on my phone for any questions.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I learned a lot, and hopefully our listeners did as well. All right. And so I will put all the contact information for Brittney in the show notes below. So if you have any questions or you're thinking about a project, I'm sure she'd be happy to have a conversation with you.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Evelyn, for having me on today.
You're very welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Take care.